Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why you sometimes can't focus when you are worried about something, even if the scary thing hasn't happened yet? Well, this new study dives deep into that feeling. It is all about how just thinking about something bad might be happening can mess with your brain's ability to pay attention and remember things. Especially if you are already a bit of an anxious person. So researchers wanted to see if simply waiting for something scary to happen hurts your thinking ability, your working memory, and if being more anxious makes this even worse. Previous studies hinted at this, but one particular study used music to make people feel anxious before each task, and the scientists weren't sure if it was the anticipation itself or the music causing the problems. Think about it, your brain is always trying to predict what is going to happen next. When there's a potential danger, your brain automatically focuses some attention on that danger, even if it is not there yet. This is called threat anticipation. Now, working memory is like your brain's Scratchpad. It is where you hold and work with information right now, like remembering a phone number while you dial it or following a set of instructions. The scientists here were wondering if this anticipation of danger, this focus on potential future bad stuff, takes up so much mental space that it leaves less room for your working memory to do its job. A previous study by Fournier and his colleagues actually tested this. They created a game in a virtual mansion where participants had to do two things at once. They had to remember letters while also judging if numbers were odd or even. At the same time, they were told that a neutral person or a threatening person might appear in any room, though importantly, no one ever actually showed up. This setup was designed to create that anticipating threat feeling. But here is the catch with that previous study. They used different sounds for each situation, nice sounds for the neutral rooms and spooky sounds for the threat rooms. The new research we're looking at today wanted to know if those sounds were actually doing some of the heavy lifting in making people feel anxious, or if it was purely the anticipation of the threat itself. So, the main goal of this new study was to repeat that experiment, but get rid of those sound effects. They wanted to see if just the idea of a threat appearing would mess with people's attention and working memory, and crucially, if this would be different for people who tend to be more anxious than others. They imagined a virtual mansion again, where participants had to remember letters and judge numbers. Instead of different characters with different threats, they simplified it. There was a neutral character, like Sybil, who was friendly. The main thing was Vlad, the threatening character whose appearance would mean losing all your points, which now translated to real money. There was also a third character, Max, who was neutral and somewhat of a filler, only appearing once to keep the illusion that hosts might show up. The key was that Vlad the threat was described as both a screamer and someone who would steal your points, combining two types of threat. They got 47 students for this study. For the math part, the odd-even number task, they made sure everyone was doing a decent job, and if they weren't, those people were removed from the final results. They also weeded out anyone who got confused about which character was which. Before the game, everyone filled out a questionnaire to measure how much they tend to worry. This is their way of figuring out who is generally more anxious. Then they played the game for about half an hour. Each round involved seeing letters, judging numbers, and then trying to remember the letters. The rooms were colored, and each color was linked to either the neutral person or the threatening person. But again, no one ever appeared. So imagine you see a letter, then 3 numbers you have to quickly say if they're odd or even, then the next letter and so on for 6 letters. After all the letters and numbers, you have to recall the letters in order. And yes, points meant real money, which they were told upfront. So it wasn't just a game, there was a small financial stake. After the game, they asked participants how much they wanted to win, how unpleasant they found each character, and how much they feared them showing up. They also asked them to guess how likely it was that the characters would appear. Now, for the science part, they used some fancy math called generalized linear mixed effects models to look at the data. Basically, they were trying to see if the anticipation of the threat, how anxious someone was, and how these two things interacted affected how well people did on the letter recall and the odd-even number task. First, they checked if their setup actually worked. Did people find the threatening character scarier? Yes, they did. Did they worry about the threatening character showing up? Absolutely. And because real money was on the line, people actually cared more about winning than in the previous study. So the stage was set for some interesting results. Let's talk about the odd-even number task, which measured how well people could pay attention. They found that the anticipation of the threat by itself didn't really change performance for everyone. But here is the big reveal. It heavily depended on how anxious someone was. For people who were less anxious, experiencing the anticipation of the threat actually made them slightly better at the number task. It was like a little boost. But for people who were more anxious, the anticipation of the threat made their attention worse. They made more mistakes. Think of it this way, if you are not worried, the possibility of something bad happening might sharpen your focus a bit. But if you are already a worrier, that same possibility is overwhelming and makes it harder to concentrate on anything else. Now, let's look at working memory, the letter recall task. Again, there was no significant overall effect of just anticipating the threat for everyone. But once more, anxiety played a massive role, similar to the attention task when people were less anxious. Anticipating the threat actually seemed to help them remember the letter slightly better. It is like they were more motivated to perform well. However, for the highly anxious individuals, the anticipation of the threat significantly impaired their ability to recall the letters. Their working memory took a hit. Interestingly, the study authors compared these results to the previous one where sounds were used. They found that while the main effect of threat anticipation was weaker without the sounds, the modulation by anxiety was actually stronger in this new study. This suggests that removing the sounds helped isolate the pure effect of anticipation and how it interacts with individual differences in anxiety. So, what does this all mean? The main takeaway is that anticipating a threat doesn't affect everyone the same way. For people who are generally less anxious, the potential for a threat might actually give them a little cognitive boost. It is like they're more alert and focused. This could be related to a general arousal effect where a moderate level of stress can improve performance. This is sometimes called counter-regulation, where people try harder to overcome potential negative outcomes. They might focus more on the task to distract themselves or manage the situation better. This aligns with theories of attentional control, which suggest that anxiety consumes limited attentional resources. When you are worried about a potential threat, your brain is already busy trying to process that worry, leaving fewer resources for other important tasks like paying attention or remembering things. The fact that this effect was stronger in this study even without the sounds is interesting. Combining the two threat types, screaming and losing points, and adding real money probably made the potential threat feel more significant, especially for those prone to anxiety. Now, it is important to mention what this study can tell us. They changed a few things at once. Removed sounds, added money, and combined threats. So, it is hard to say exactly which of these changes caused the differences they saw, although the authors think removing sounds was key. Also, this boost in performance for less anxious people wasn't something they initially predicted. So it needs more investigation. Overall, this research adds compelling evidence that anticipating danger can indeed affect our thinking. And this effect is very much tied to our individual levels of anxiety. It highlights that for anxious individuals, just the thought of something bad could be a significant distraction, impacting both focus and memory. This also suggests that for managing anxiety, it is not just about dealing with actual threats, but also about managing the anticipatory phase as a constant. What-ifs that can take a real toll on our cognitive abilities. Future research could explore more ways to help people manage this anticipatory distress and perhaps even harness the potential alertness that low-level threat anticipation might offer to less anxious individuals. So, what do you think? Does this resonate with your own experiences? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more insights into how our minds work. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.